just to start off, Ray, obviously from a title race perspective, we're coming right into the final straight now.
Yeah.
Final furlongs. Arsenal 3 games to go. City tucked in behind with a game in hand. What are your thoughts on how it's going to shape up?
Well, I'm just pleased they're still in it, because we know what happened last season when there was competing, and suddenly they had a West Ham, Liverpool, Southampton, and it all went out the door very, very quickly. So at least they're competing. They're putting some good performances in. They're still playing with confidence and belief. I think they would have learnt from last year, certainly. I mean, there's certain players who've turned up. Havertz, who's been in big games, and Declan Rice played in the final for West Ham. So it was a situation where they just had to keep going. I know it's an old cliche, but we always used to work on this, one game at a time. Don't even look in front who we got, and just try and get results. And to be fair to them, they've kept doing that. Obviously, the weekend game is, as much as Manchester United have been awful, but inconsistent this year. In the history of football, Arsenal Man United over the years, rivalry has always been very, very intense. So I'm always a little bit worried because the form sometimes does go out the window. The form now, you go Arsenal 4-0, but the form does go out and win certain games like this, and they need to bounce back after that really dismal performance against Palace. So be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, you just got to keep going, stay focused as a player. And look, if Man City do win every game and they win the league, Arsenal kind of hold their heads up high and say, look, we went all the way, we challenged you all the way, and we're improving all the time. And they've got to keep improving like they have done this season.
Yeah, I mean, as you alluded to, when you were playing, that rivalry between Arsenal and United was unlike anything else, wasn't it?
Well, that was always the first fixture you looked at, was when you play Manchester United home and away. 4 points out of those 2 games, then that was a good return. You had a chance maybe to win the league. So that's what we looked at. And then we obviously looked at the North London derby, which was more for the fans than it was, trying to win anything. So, but that was such an intense game. I remember coming off the field, and you always got bruises and bumps and ice packs everywhere. Putting ice on your knees and your ankles, but they was the same as well. So it was a very intense game, so much at stake. And I think Sir Alex Ferguson and Wenger knew how much was at stake, and the players knew that as well. And that's why sometimes we got a little bit out of hand at certain games, but everybody wanted to win so badly in those games, and that's why it was probably so feisty on and off the pitch.
Were you revving each other up for those games? Was Arsene trying to keep a lid on it? What was it like in the change room?
Do you know what? We tried to keep every game as normal, but you knew the intensity and you knew how important it was as a player. But you try to go into a game like cup final. I think Wenger done very well there to try to take the pressure off you a little bit, because if you sometimes think about it too much, or knowing that it's such a big game and being told it's a big game so many times, then you can sometimes freeze on the occasion. So I think we tried to approach the game exactly like we did any other game in the league, but deep down, I knew how important it was as a player, and I'm sure the other players did as well. So yeah, and it's always a great atmosphere. Pat Weiss always taught me, as a youth team player, that first tackle is so important. You've got to win it, and if you could win your first tackle against your opponent, then it puts you on the front foot a little bit, and that was always very important as well. Winning the tackles, second balls, and all that sort of stuff. As much as we played some good football, it was all about scrapping as well a little bit and being tough, because that was a real tough team Manchester United was playing against.
So many games, Ray, but perhaps the most significant, and it's the 22nd anniversary today, this week, of when you went to Old Trafford. You were man of the match, if I remember correctly, to win 1-0, Will Todd, and do the double. Can you talk us through your memories of that day? Because it was that was the best. Match,
that was probably the best week of my life in football. I mean, to score in a cup final the weekend, because it was really weird, because the cup final was always the last game of the season, but there was a spell where we had games after the FA Cup final. And I think that gives a little bit of momentum as well, beating Chelsea in the cup. That spurred us on a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, the game itself, we knew we had to defend well, and that's what we did. We had no one we know Bergkamp, if you remember rightly. It was Will Todd and Carney up front. So just showed you the strength and the depth, really, in the squad, because our 2 best players probably weren't even playing. And you can imagine Sir Alex Ferguson saying to his players, like, don't let them win the league here. They're our big rivals, So you could tell the atmosphere was really, they can't beat us here. They can't beat us here. You know, if they do win it, go on and win it. They ain't going to win it here. And we defended so well. I think Martin Keown always says that, you know, that midfield four in front of him was we guarded them so well, the back four, that, you know, they didn't have many opportunities really. I don't think Dave Seaman made too many saves that day. And we just was a real solid 8, if you like, in midfield. And even Cardiff was dropping off into like number 10 role in that era. And then we just took our chance when we got it, and we knew we were going to get maybe 1 or 2 chances, but you got to make sure you try and take it when you do get an opportunity. And lucky enough, Sylvain did take the chance, and then we just had to hold on then. But I'm sure the away fans who were lucky enough to be at Old Trafford had a time of their life, because, you know, that week was very special for the club, winning the double, and we certainly had a big party after. I think even everybody come out, and I was the instigator as usual, trying to get everybody out, and we ended up in London somewhere, I don't know, but it was just a magical week to be involved with Arsenal Football Club, and I'm sure the fans would say exactly the same, because to win a double, we won it in '98, obviously a double, and that was a very good team, but to win it again was very special, and especially to do it at Old Trafford, which, you know, we're lucky enough to do it at White Hart Lane. I know 4 we won the league, but to do it at Old Trafford as well, your big rivals, that was very, very special.
And the Arsenal fans still sing about winning at Old Trafford. I think you've told this story before, Ray, but, you know, as you said, you scored in that cup final against Chelsea at the weekend. It was in Cardiff, wasn't it? And
it was indeed, yeah.
And Arsene had you on a special sort of like keep fit, keep yourself alert for the big match in midweek, and it didn't quite work out that way. Can you tell us that?
No, it was just momentum, really. I mean, I always had a couple of beers after the game. That didn't, you know, never affected me. But I remember him on the plane saying, "No drinking. Big game Wednesday at Old Trafford." I said, "Boss, it's only Saturday. I'll be fine by Wednesday. I'm only going to have a couple of beers. It's not a big deal." And anyway, he said say no, and I didn't have the beer in there. I went to the back of the plane. My brother was at the back, and I was just about to have a beer at the back with all the families, and he come all the way down the plane and said, "No drinking. Big game Wednesday." Anyway, I got off the plane, had a few drinks at the time with my new missus at the time, because I've just got divorced, so I was going to have a new girl. And the guy was a big Arsenal fan, so he popped some champagne on my table to say well done on obviously scoring in the cup final. And you know what it's like, you had a couple of drinks, the next minute you're in. There's so many Arsenal fans in this restaurant, they'll keep coming up, buying me drinks, and you just get amongst it, everything, and enjoying yourself, really. And probably had too many that night. And then obviously on the Sunday, I kept out of the way. I only had to do a warm down on the Sunday, so I was fine. And then we had a few beers on the Sunday as well, because I ended up going into my local social club, and all my mates had backed me first goal scorer, which was a big price at the time, because we had Henry Bergkamp and all them sort of guys on the pitch. So they always say, "Come on, I'll get you a drink." I said, "No, lads, I've got a big game Wednesday. I'll have 1 pint of Guinness and I've got to go." So I had a few more pints of Guinness in there. But Wednesday, I got to Old Trafford and I felt great. I felt absolutely flying. And, you know, if you look at my stats that night, I ran everywhere. I mean, that didn't affect me at all, having a few beers and whatever. And I think it's more the momentum as well. You just scored a cup final. You know, it's a big game. And I just felt so good. And, you know, on the night, lucky enough, I did get man of the match. I'm sure there's quite a few candidates to get it, but I got it. And I was very proud. But as I went to the dressing room area, I always remember Arsene Wenger on the word with you. I'm thinking, oh no, that restaurant, I think I've overdone it here. I'm going to get fined here 2 weeks' wages. And he looked at me, went, "You was brilliant tonight, great performance." I said, "Boss, what a week I've had, scored a cup final, get man of the match at Old Trafford. That doesn't happen too often." And he looked round. He used to always look round so no one's listening. And he went, "Ray, do you know what it was?" I said, "No, boss. I stopped you drinking that beer on that plane." So I was like, "All right, thank God for that." And we just walked off, really. So I was very lucky he didn't find it. He probably read my book. No, maybe he hasn't read my book, but it might be in there as well. So, yeah, but that night, I mean, I was absolutely flying. And I felt so fit. And I was coming to the end of the season, obviously. And I think against Chelsea, a few of the lads were getting a bit tired. I think you could see a little bit of fatigue in our team. And lucky enough, whoever scored that first goal at Millennium Stadium, I think would have gone on and won the game. Chelsea, because Dave Seaman made a couple of good saves before I scored. But when I scored, I think it gave everybody a lift in the team as well. And that's when we went on, and Freddie scored a great goal as well. And I think that was the platform for going to Old Trafford and getting the result he needed. And you know, what a night that was. I mean, I'll always remember that famous goal kit as well. I think I've still got the shirt somewhere. But that was a special night for Arsenal fans, definitely. My dad was there as well, and my brother, and he said, "God, what a performance! Unbelievable!" And he was a West Ham fan, my dad. So, but he said that was a top side you had there, really, really quality.
Yeah, I remember I covered that match last night. It was a long old night, but probably not as long as your one. But
we ended up getting back to the. We got back to the training ground because it was obviously a night game. And I think Dennis I don't know if Dennis, he might have travelled. He must have travelled. I'm sure he did. Because he wasn't playing. And then we all went back to the training ground. And there was all champagne there, and Pat Rice was there. All the backroom staff had come into the training ground to have a little bit of a celebration. And then I think the coach dropped us in London somewhere. I organised a big, like, all the lads went out, and we partied into the night, put it that way. And it was fantastic. All the lads were really having a good time. And I think we might have had a testimonial, someone's testimonial. Was it the next day or the day after, or something like that? I can't remember now, but I think it was someone's testimonial. And so we had to keep a little bit. We couldn't go too mad, but that was a great night, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, you talk about finding energy.
Last one, Nick, if that's cool, man.
Yeah, just about how do players find that energy? Because it looks like the current Arsenal team were looking a bit leggy a couple of weeks ago. Now they're flying again. Look like they could run all day.
Well, you got to see what's at stake. You know, I mean, you can't feel tired. I mean, look, you have to rest a bit more. You have to have a few more massages. You just have to get your head right and say, look, I'm not tired. Because it's easy for someone to say, you look tired, and oh yeah, I feel tired. So I think you've got to find something somewhere, and I always could do that. And always, I was pretty strong mentally to say, look, I'm going to keep running for the team here. You know, I've got to close people down, and I can't. If I switch off, and you know, I don't know excuses after the game saying, oh, I feel a bit leggy. So I don't know. It's really weird. And what they're playing for at the moment is such a big prize, you know, the Premier League. So I know that I can understand players do play a lot of games now and all that, but you never get a bigger buzz than walking out on a football stadium in front of 50,000, 60,000. I'd rather do that than train every day. And the training methods now won't be a lot. It'd be ticking over. You know, Arsene Wenger, when we had 3 games in a week, we'd be ticking over most of the days, and just making sure your body's ready for the next game. And I think that's what, you know, the players probably are doing now, because, you know, you can't get no fitter now. It's all about, you know, keeping your body, staying fit, not getting injured, and just getting through games. But, you know, they must be buzzing at the moment, because the Emirates has been absolutely rocking this year. And the players to play in front of that atmosphere week in, week out, you must get a buzz out of that. You can't feel tired. And I think the lads have shown that. They've really, you know, they've really run that extra mile for the fans as well, because they can see that they're really supporting them, and, you know, the supporters can see that they're really playing for the shirt, which is so important.